I'm so excited to talk to you and all the things you're doing. I'm like, holy
Oh
heck, this
my
guy is
goodness.
like on fire.
And I am all over the place.
It doesn't seem that way. That's awesome.
Where are you located? I didn't get to do that specific recon last night when I was
That's
prepping.
okay. I'm in Toronto, Canada. Where are you?
Oh, right. Okay. In LA, Los Angeles,
Okay, so different time zone.
the other CA.
The other CA, the hotter
Yeah.
one, it's freezing here right now. It's like ridiculous. Like winter hasn't left.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There are other places to live. I'm just
I
throwing
know,
it out
right?
there.
I know, I know. I shouldn't complain. I can move.
Yeah. It's funny
No,
because all I see behind you is Russia. It's like right
I know.
there
It's
on
so
that map.
funny. I have this map that I got for all my for my coaching, and I pin when I have students. I should have just got a North America one because it's like it's all over Canada, then mostly the US. And then I'm like, no one in Russia is ever going to take my course. And yet it takes up half the freaking wall. I feel like we could talk about a lot of things, which is a great problem to have. So I want to get more focused. Um, you have a really interesting story that I would like to hear. I don't want to take up all the airtime, but I'd love to hear about how you had a previous business that you sold, it sounds like.
Yes.
And now you're on this trajectory to build another business, or that you are
Yeah.
building that I'm assuming is eventually going to be sold. I'm like, oh, this guy's such a smart marketer. So that might be a separate offline conversation we can have. But I do think it's helpful to see your business savvy. And then talking about like, I don't know, like, I mean, it is interior designers here listening. So they're going to wonder like, okay, what happens if I go to you for resources or to purchase? So I want to understand that process a little bit. Tell us about couch.com, what it is. And then I love this idea of talking about marketing and partnership ideas for interior design businesses looking to scale. I don't know if you have any specific ideas there, but I think that could be really helpful just to talk a bit about the marketing because you clearly have a good sense of the marketing. Um, so it's a balance of the marketing business side and then also like, here's how you can help your clients to buy furniture. Here's what you need to know. Okay, I'm going to
All
clap.
right.
We're going to dive right in.
Okay.
All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Welcome to the podcast, Alex. I am so excited. I've got 1,000,001 questions for you. But before we dive into all the things, welcome. And can you maybe just introduce yourself to my audience?
Yes. Thank you for having me. My name is Alex. Last name is Back. Alex Back is my full name. I am the founder and CEO of couch.com, which is an innovative new platform to help people find the couches of their dreams, or sort of like the match.com of couches. So that's what I do now. And formerly, I've been in the furniture space for a long time, and I ran a direct to consumer furniture brand called Apartment 2B, APT 2B. If many of your listeners may be familiar, perhaps you have sourced from us before. Still say us, of course. I'm not with the business anymore because we sold it. So,
Woohoo!
um, yeah, that was pretty great. And then I stuck around for a few years and left about a year and a half ago, and now I'm off on my own, taking a journey back into the couch. Really, well, that's where it's a journey, but I'm still sticking with the couches.
So it's not really into the unknown. I'm
No,
just
that's kind of where
picturing
I was going with
Elsa,
that. So
right?
thank you for
Yeah.
picking up on that, but I
Into
didn't
the
really get there because
unknown.
oh,
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. I got a daughter.
Yeah. You've heard
So we're
that
heading
song before.
a few million times. And so have many of our listeners. There are many moms listening today.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So I love this. When I first sort of heard about you and started looking into your website, this whole couch.com, I was fascinated. First of all, I thought, holy shoot, this guy knows something about marketing. Like he is just so specific. It is beyond niche. It's like the niche of the niches, which I think is really interesting. And that's a whole conversation that we could have here with designers. Um, but like couches, like, first of all, I thought only Canadians called it a couch and that the Americans called it a sofa. So tell me about that. And why
Yeah.
couches?
Yeah. Well, I really do love couches. I've sold a lot of them in my career. And, the less interesting answer, I guess, is just we sold a lot of couches at Apartment 2B. That was sort of our bread and butter. I became uniquely familiar with all of the competitors in the space on the retail side of things, all the manufacturers in the space, just sort of sourcing and working with different suppliers over the years. I understand sort of the ins and outs very well. So when I heard that couch.com was available, at first I was like, well, I wasn't that interested because of the price tag of the website. It only cost me my life savings, no big deal. But um, it I kind of thought like, well, I don't know that there's anybody better suited to do something cool with couch.com than me. So I'm sort of like, I'm really just following my civic duty here, fulfilling my civic duty, to be the
Yes,
couch expert that
everybody
everybody needs.
needs.
But yeah, and everybody needs a couch too,
True.
right? We all
Truth.
have one of some kind, not everybody, but like most people do.
Right. So couches. So do you sell couches?
So couch.com is a little bit different. Now, we are sort of solving a problem for the industry. And when I say the industry, I mean both consumers and retailers, because consumers generally have no idea where to buy a couch. Now, interior designers know this because most often interior designers are sought after to help people source furniture. That's a huge part of our jobs as interior designers, right? So,
Yep.
um, we all understand, I think, and I say we because I consider myself part of the group. We all understand sort of the trials and tribulations that consumers go through. Do I go to one of the big box stores that like I pass by on the highway on my way home from work? Do I like search online to find that cool boutique brand that I maybe saw on Instagram? There's a lot of sort of trust that needs to be gained when people spend a lot of money online or in person on a piece of furniture for their home. And it's really difficult to do that, especially in an industry where consumers know very, very little about. So,
Mm.
couch.com exists to educate consumers on things they may be curious about, whether that's the difference between the couch and a sofa. There is none, it's just semantics. Or if
Just
it's,
checking.
yeah, sure. Or if it's, what the best types of fabrics for kids or like what's hot out there, who has the best sales for Black Friday, all of these things that we're curious about as consumers. I think we aim to provide at couch.com. And ultimately, we want to match people with the retailers that will match their specifications for what they need for their home. Maybe they need a pink sofa that is great for kids and has button tufting and they need it tomorrow. Well, that's going to narrow your search down pretty heavily, and we intend
Mhm.
to be there to help a consumer do that.
So it's almost like you're a search engine for couches, but like you're more than that because you don't just type in what you're looking for, I'm assuming. There's also education in there. So it's here's what, I'm looking for playful children's furniture. Well, then you probably have, I'm assuming, I haven't used your service, but a short list. Well, here are our recommendations. Here's who you should go to. Is that sort of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's generally the idea. I wouldn't call it a short list because what we're building here and the platform, like the full scope of this idea is not realized yet at the time that we're recording this in April 2024. But it will be soon. And ultimately, we are trying to offer as comprehensive of a view uh, of the retailers available to a consumer in their local area or online that meets their specifications. This is going to be a curated list. In fact, many of your listeners may be familiar with the wedding website, The Knot. The Knot is sort of the prototypical business that we're modeling Couch.com after. When you go to The Knot, you can sort of learn about, when do I take my engagement ring off before the wedding? Is that like the day of, or like, do I do a little switcheroo and he gives me the
Totally.
other one?
Oh my gosh. I used the knot when I was engaged. It was like the most incredible resource and for inspiration and ideas and like, yeah, what's a faux pas? What are people doing here? And I think there was like a newsletter. I'm trying to remember. Eventually, then I got married and I moved past that and then had babies and then I stopped. I didn't even know that they were still around because
Oh,
that's just not
yeah.
my stage of life.
Right. Well, that's so interesting that you say it's not your stage of life. A wedding is something that people like everybody has a sense, like everybody's been to weddings. Many of us have had weddings, many of us have had multiple weddings, but it's not something you do every day. And it's the same thing about buying furniture. Customers, no matter how connected they are to the things that they've bought furniture wise in their home, they haven't done it in like 5 years at least, right? When's the last time you
Yeah.
you switched out your sofa? 5, 6, 7 years, 10 years. Sometimes people have never bought a couch before, the same way they haven't bought a wedding. So the reason that the knot exists is to provide resources, education, and ultimately be a connector piece in an industry that is very fragmented, that consumers know very little about.
Mm.
If you're doing having a destination wedding in Los Angeles, you don't know who the best caterers are. And yeah, you can go Yelp and Google your way into figuring this out and get on the phone and pound the pavement. But wouldn't it be nice to go to a page of curated caterers that are sort of the not approved or curated couch retailers that are couch.com approved? So it's really sort of a one for one, almost apples to apples comparison between what they do and what we're setting
Mm.
up to do at couch.com.
That's super, super cool. So, well, how do designers fit into this picture here? Like, this sounds like a really great resource for, the average Joe who's like, oh, it's time to get a couch. We need to replace this one. Like, I don't even know where to start. What about designers? Like, how can designers use this as a tool to help them and or help their clients?
Yeah, I think two specific ways. I mean, I think there are a number of different ways, but two ways that I can point to. One, sourcing is really difficult. Like I've worked with hundreds of designers, and a lot of them were sort of came back to our brand, Apartment 2B, that I used to run, time and time again because they liked our product, sure, but mostly because it was familiar and proven and trustworthy, right? So designers don't want to have problems. They want to just be comfortable. They want to understand where the furniture is coming from. Are there going to be issues? How does the shipping work and things like that? So once they feel comfortable with something, they tend to stick with it. Now, that can actually be a detriment in many ways because when you talk to designers, oftentimes I've found, at least when it comes to couches, that they'll have like 2 or 3 resources that they'll use. It'll be like, oh, it's either, Crate and Barrel, RH for my high-end clients, or like I have this one custom, guy down the street. Um, I don't know. I've heard similar stories to that. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that just offering a greater scope of what is actually out there may open doors for designers and ultimately their clients. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think the biggest thing that designers deal with customers that can be frustrating is that customers generally or clients have no idea what they want. So we are building tools like an AI powered quiz that helps you figure out what kind of sofa you're looking for. Do you want something that has deep seating? Do you want something that has a high back, extra cushiony? Do you want your feet on the floor? Do you want to be curling up? These are things that can dramatically change the course of your couch search or search for anything for that matter. And when it comes to a designer trying to extract that information, we're trying to give tools to the designer and to the client to help figure that out and ask the questions, like a checklist of all the things you need to think about before you're kind of ready to go buy a couch. Sounds
I love
complicated, but
that.
it'll be fun. I promise, guys.
Uh, well, I don't think it sounds as complicated to a designer. Probably to those listening, this sounds like music to their ears because, like, when you're starting out in the interior design world, unless you've worked for a design firm for a decade and really know your stuff, it can be really overwhelming knowing where to hunt for products for clients. And then, even then, like trying to describe it to your clients. I remember being at High Point a couple years ago and I was with some designers And they were asking all these questions like, oh, I didn't know what do you mean, fill? What are you talking about? Oh, seat height? Like simple things like that, that you need to educate yourself as a designer. They're not teaching that in school. They are not teaching those unless you do a decorating specific diploma. I
Right.
don't think there's a lot of education out there for designers when it comes to that. Don't get me started on window treatments, but with the sofas, with the couches, it does seem that there's a need for that knowledge, but that also it's so overwhelming. I literally was at High Point 2 weeks ago, and I'm like sitting in all these chairs, and I'm going through with these other designers, and we're going showroom to showroom to showroom. At some point, it all blurs into one. I don't remember who had the better comfort level versus the fabric versus, oh my God, it's all basically one thing to me, and it can be really dizzying. And so I love this idea of having one place to go as a resource where you can do a little compare and contrast, and you can decide what works for you. And I also love this idea of like, it's going to make the designer look like an expert to their clients. No? Because they can get the information from you and then be like, here's why I chose this one.
Oh, 100%. And just generally make their lives easier. Like so far, we've been getting going for the last 6 months or so, and mostly just building out our content library, but making all these videos of me, mostly me, and some industry experts talking about various things. So I've made videos about how to deal with fabric pilling on your couch, or how to negotiate in a furniture store. I have some tips and tricks, and then I have industry experts that talk about like shopping on different marketplaces like Wayfair and Amazon, and like sort of the business behind it. And these are videos
Mm,
not only that can help the designers, but also they can just like send them to their clients, so they don't have to be in the position of educating them
right.
about what a fill material is or what a high density foam cushion is and things like that. So yeah, I mean, these resources, they do exist online, but in very fragmented form. It's hard to find, a good sort of singular resource to get multiple pieces of information like the ones we're
Mm.
discussing.
Okay, let's just geek out for a second here.
I
Can
thought
we
we
talk
were
about
already. Where are we
no, no,
going?
no. Let's go
Where?
really deep. Can we talk about pilling? Because I have to say, I had a situation a few years ago where we did a decorating project here in Toronto, and we used like a cravat. I don't know if it was a performance fabric, but it was like a durable upholstery grade fabric. We had two sofas made by my custom guy. Yeah, the guy you were talking about just down the street. And which actually, as Canadians, we tend to do more of what I've noticed than Americans, because we don't have the same access to wholesalers. It's a
Big
bit more
time.
complicated.
Oh yeah.
So we do more custom. But anyhow, I got a phone call like 6 months later that the sofa was pilling everywhere. And I mean, I was mortified because here I thought I had specified the right fabric and what have you. And in the end, Cravat replaced the fabric and paid for the reupholstery of the sofas. But talk to me about this, because this is almost a designer's biggest fear, worst nightmare, that you put something into someone's home, and because we've selected it, we're now on the hook if it doesn't stay perfect. And let's face it, our clients want this crazy perfection. So like, talk to me about pilling.
Okay.
Tell me
I
all
have
the
a lot to
things.
say about pilling. All right. Number one, pilling is not necessarily a sign of poor quality when it comes to a fabric. It can just be sort of like an unlucky occurrence, right? I've seen very
Hmm.
higher end fabrics pill as well. It also has a lot to do with how the fabrics are being used, and what, if like, let's picture a cowboy coming off the ranch with like the absolute thickest Carhartt pants you could possibly imagine, could be scraping against it. So a lot of it's situational, sort of unlucky. It's not the end of the world. By and large, pilling can be remedied very, very easily. The only issue is like how constantly you might have to do it. The way to fix pilling, fabric shaver. It's as simple as that. When we had customers who would have problems with pilling, what we would do as a customer service team, we would reach out to them. So sorry to hear about that. Please don't worry. Like, we have a remedy in place. We're going to send you a fabric shaver on the house. We would order it from Amazon and send them like these really cute Conair fabric shavers that come in different colors. We choose a fun color. We send it to them. It costs like $12, and generally speaking, 95+% of the time, we never heard back from the customer. Now, sometimes you have a fabric that came from a lot that was, that just like I said, sometimes one lot of fabric can be different than the next. And you just have, one that pills a little bit more. So it can be a real nuisance. But if you see pilling on a fabric, it doesn't necessarily, just like rugs, all new rugs pill to my knowledge, like of most fabric
Yeah.
types. It's just something that requires maintenance. The hope is that it's not a regular maintenance and it's just like a few times every now and again. The fabric shavers, they work. I've had before and after videos that prove it.
Right. So it's like shaving the sweater. Like I have these cashmere sweaters and they start to pill. I mean, I don't have a special fabric shaver. I'm going to Google this now after our call. I just use a razor. That's probably bad. But oh
What do
God,
you
based
mean?
on your
Like a
reaction, like
literally
I
like
just
a
like a razor that you would use to shave your legs. And I just
oh,
use it and
shaved legs.
yeah, not like a electric thing. And I would take the pills off my cashmere sweaters. It works pretty well. Never thought of having a fabric shaver as a tool for upholstery. So that is super interesting. I like that idea.
I got one for my girlfriend. It's the best gift I got her. $12, guys,
So
if you're listening
romantic.
out there.
uh, so that doesn't mean that it's poor quality then, because I always understood that if a fabric pills, it's pretty crappy quality.
Not in my experience, but let me qualify by saying one, I'm not a fabric expert.
Right.
Um, and to be frank, like I've never worked in super high-end luxury markets. So there, if you're paying, $70 a yard for fabric and it pills, I think that could be grounds for being upset about it or whatever. But in my experience in sort of like the mid-range to sort of low high end,
Hmm.
where is my bread and butter. And um I've seen it sort of like interchangeably, like a grade 3 fabric versus a grade 1. One might pill and the other one might not. In fact, I think it's sometimes the higher end fabrics that people generally have problems with. When we would have com orders or customers own material with when designers would give us fabrics for their clients to use on their couches, that's when we generally had the most problems with quality, because sometimes these higher end fabrics are not in mass production, they're not regulated or looked after by the producers as much. Picture like a super specific pattern, like, how much
Hmm.
do you think they sell of that? It's like these are
Yeah.
limited run things that,
May not even be
versus
made for upholstery too, right?
right, versus like your average sort of performance fabric or microfiber polyester based material that a crate and barrel might run. I mean, they're pounding thousands of yards a week on this stuff. So,
Yeah, that's
generally
fair.
speaking, I think it's all relative to a specific situation. We
Okay,
really
let's
geeked out on
also,
that. I'll be quiet
I
now. Go
know,
ahead.
I've got the next geeky thing, and then I'll
Okay.
stop asking geeky questions. Cleaning a couch. So I have this, I have children, and they often dirty the furniture with their shoes or they're eating a chocolate muffin or whatever.
Oh, my
And
kids
we've been
don't. That's
using,
amazing. Wow.
oh,
Really?
your kids are perfect then. Or they're not allowed in certain rooms, maybe.
There's literally gum from 2 months ago still on one of my cushions I haven't cleaned
Okay,
yet.
gum, that's
Just
a whole other ball game.
oh
But if it
boy.
was like regular food stains, I mean, we have this like, I don't know if it's a Bissell, it's like a carpet cleaner thing. And like sometimes it works, but sometimes it just makes it worse. And then I'm cleaning like a cushion, and all of a sudden that part is so clean. And then the rest of the sofa looks dirty by comparison, or the couch. Not look at me, I'm saying sofa all the time. I grew up saying couch. I don't know what it
Wow.
is. So, anyways, what do you do? Like, what's the best way to clean these things?
Well, first of all, some of my Canadian friends say Chesterfield a lot.
Oh,
I'm sure
yes,
you grew up with that term.
there's a store that used to exist. I don't know if it's still here, called the Chesterfield Shop. Have you heard of
Yeah,
it? I don't know
I
if it's
think
still
so.
around. Yeah,
I
I
think so.
obviously was
Well,
Canadian.
Chesterfield was very pop. It is actually a style of couch, but it was sort of
Oh.
so popular. It's the one that has like it looks
Mm.
like it belongs in like the study in the game Clue. It has like so many button tufts,
Ah,
like the
right.
whole thing, rounded arms. Restoration Hardware went like crazy with this style
Yes.
probably
Yep.
10 or 15 years ago. Anyway, I digress.
Hmm.
Um Cleaning. Man, I have a lot to say about this. So, I think a few a few things that I'll address without going too deep into it. Steam cleaning was what I think you're describing.
I
Bissell is
think
a
so.
company that
Hmm.
sells steam cleaners. You can buy ones. I generally think that those aren't that helpful. The more industrial powered ones, like the ones you would rent at a Home Depot or Lowe's or
Right.
that kind of a store, I've seen people have some success with. But we would sort of process and refurbish many returns to sell in our outlet. Products that were open box, couches that were returned or gently used. If it was really rough, we would donate it or, God forbid, dispose of it if we absolutely needed to. Mostly donate it. But if it needed a cleaning and a little zhuzh, we had a regular steam cleaning appointment with a company called Delta Chem Dry. They would come by every month and be like, "Hey, here's the go to that corner. That's where we have all the couches in our warehouse that need to be cleaned." The thing about steam cleaning is you can't really spot clean it. To your point earlier, you'll notice that it looks a little bit
Mm,
different than the rest of it. So it needs to be done somewhat thoroughly. This can cost anywhere from 75 to $200 depending on where you live, and I'm talking US dollars here. So
so
um
that's like $500 Canadian.
is
I'm
that
joking,
right?
but it feels
Oh my
like
god.
it. It feels
Wait,
like it. No,
don't
we're like
make me
40% more.
oh, is it that much? Okay.
I don't know. It seems like that. The
Uh,
bank gives us crappy rates. But anyways,
all right.
I
Well,
digress. Keep going.
okay. Well, either way, just to give a sense of how much that costs. I mean, to some people it might be worth it. If you've had a couch for 4 years and your kids have there's like 19 stains on it. Well, yeah, it might be worth $100 to give it like a really nice once over. Um, but I don't know that that's the best way to spot clean things. Spot cleaning, a lot of fabrics are most fabrics are polyester based. But when in the interior design community, we all tend to use a little bit higher end fabric. Sometimes you get into linens, into cottons, or some pattern prints made of various materials. And those are often very averse to being cleaned with anything water based. So you want to
Hmm.
find, upholstery cleaning products that are not water based. It's very difficult. There's only a few out there. Some of them are like sprays and stuff like that. Um, so that can be quite tricky. However, I have a super, super industry deep level secret that I
Ooh,
only
do
tell to
tell.
certain people, but I'm going to
I
tell
feel
you,
so special.
well, I mean, this one's a good one. So, our showroom secret for whenever we had in person events over the years is to have a bottle of isopropyl rubbing alcohol nearby. Rubbing alcohol cleans stains better than anything else that I personally know about. And the good things are one, it smells horrible, but it
Hmm.
dries extremely quickly because it is not water based. So it's one of the only cleaning solvents that has no water content in it and is extremely potent. It cleans things very well and it dries quickly and it doesn't leave any marks, stains, or smells after it dries.
Hmm.
Rubbing alcohol.
Interesting. I am going to try that. Although I've already steam cleaned the one dining chair, so I don't know if rubbing alcohol will work now, but I will try it.
It's
You
like
know,
a
when you like
spot. Yeah, go.
try to make something better, but then you make it worse. And it's like, and then it's like a ketchup stain. I'm like, oh shit, now I can't go back from here. Like it's done.
Yeah. I
I
didn't
don't
realize we
know.
can curse on your podcast. You didn't tell me
No, we're
that.
not supposed to. They can edit
Oh,
that
okay.
out.
Okay.
Thanks for pointing that out, though. Thanks, Alex.
I just want to, I mean, that's just part of how I speak, but I'm from New York. So,
Okay, well, that's part of how I speak too. And in fact, actually, sometimes I do drop a few f bombs, and I have to apologize because I know people listen with their kids in the car. And when I do that, my podcast coordinator gets mad at me because she's like, "Now I have to mark this episode as explicit, Rebecca."
oh my goodness.
I know, right? Explicit content on Resilient by Design. Okay, this is really helpful, handy information. Any other tips that you have for interior designers when it comes to specking or picking sofas or couches for their clients? Is there anything that they should really consider or know when they are making these selections? Because a lot of designers, I tell designers all the time, to supply the furniture. I'm like, do that, supply the furniture. There's money to be made in the furniture. And we can talk about that too. But I'm curious from your perspective, if there's anything that you would recommend to interior designers before they go about sourcing and selecting furniture or couches for their clients.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways we can go with that. I have a whole bunch of ideas. One thing I'll say to start is the furniture industry is still struggling right now at the time. 2023 was a very, very, very down year for the furniture industry. And, you went to High Point a few weeks ago, and that's a furniture trade show. There are four sort of major events a year where everybody meets in Vegas or High Point, North Carolina, and they talk. So, we all know that everybody was kind of hurting last year, and there's still things are on the up right now, I think, but it wasn't fantastic. All that to say, there's a lot of inventory out there, and
Right.
there are a lot of deals to be made. And I know I've been talking to furniture brands left and right with my dealings with couch.com. Um, Look at some sale sections and clearance sections a little bit more closely. I think designers tend to focus on their trade discount and then just like sort of look through the entire website to find or offering to figure out what might be uh, worth it to them to buy. But I think if you're looking to maximize your own profits and find some real margin, like to really get into the outlets, the clearance sections, and all this, and I'm not talking just like the mom and pop stores because they are hurting the most. Even like Pottery Barn right now, I got an email because I'm in their trade program. I just went because I'm trying to help someone find some outdoor furniture, and they have so much stuff that's super deeply discounted, and it's simply
Really?
because they have tons of inventory. Everybody overbought. They're still moving things from a year ago. And I think we in the sort of community that are serving, um, interior design clients can really capitalize on that.
That's a really great tip. I don't think most of us think to go there. I mean, there's always that concern of, well, if I buy it on sale, it is final sale. So there's that a little sense of nervousness. But if it's a heavily discounted product, it's probably worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I've never had an interior design business, but if it were me, I'd probably have a small, storage facility for anything that my clients absolutely hated. And I just find other ways to, move that product
Yeah.
or sell it on Facebook Marketplace. And generally in furniture, you can get back. There's a lot of value there. Even in a used piece of furniture, you can get a lot back. It's an asset, right? So like you can get a lot back for something that you pay for. If you paid $1,000 for a couch and your clients absolutely hate, and you can't return it, yeah, you could probably turn it around for $600 or $700 to a different buyer with a little bit of hustle.
Yeah. And even on Instagram nowadays, I see design firms doing these big sales of like, here's all the furniture we've been stuck with over the last year, or
Right.
the
That
drapery,
too.
or right. And like, and people who follow those designers are like, give me the thing. I want the Rebecca Hay Designs custom sofa. Like, I'll take it. So you're right. That's such a great tip. Any other tips for designers? I know there's like probably lots of things you could share, but another top contender.
I think relationships with the retailers are great. In my experience, interior designers uh, sort of get a bad rap with retailers because there's a lot of sort of they can be extra demanding and a little bit sort of pushy. They're not the easiest customers to deal with, I think, because maybe they're a bit more savvy, and they're running a business. So it's just a different kind of relationship. That being
Mm,
said, the designers that I had great relationships with over the years that I developed personal relationships with, if I had something, I'm like, hey, I need to place a piece somewhere just to get a nice photo of it. Do you have any clients that are looking for like a couch right now? Or for, oh, I have this awesome, media stand that we're just trying to get some, user generated content on. I would go to my designers that I liked and be like, hey, Rebecca, do you have anybody that we could place this with? Can you get me a nice photo? I think having relationships in with the retailers and not seeing them as something to take from, but rather someone to partner
mm.
with is a really good way to think about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so much about relationships. I mean, any business is, I'm sure, but it does seem that in this business, you might be a difficult client, but you are a repeat client, right? And that retailer, you will purchase from them again and again. And if you have each other's backs, there's a lot that can be, you can circumvent a lot of negative situations with clients in the future when you have those relationships. So that's really smart. Do clients, I guess you're not selling furniture per se, but in your experience, do you find that interior designers are able to make a lot of margin on couches?
It's always been so interesting to me because I, if you're outside of the interior design industry, you're like, how are these people getting away with it? Like, don't their clients have a computer? Can't they come to my site and see how much I charge for this? Um, I think, you know, my whole thing recently is transparency, and I think that goes a long way. And I think if I were an interior designer with clients, I would create a value proposition up front. I would tell them like, I get furniture at special prices. I mark them up, and that's how I make money. But in return, you're getting a great product from trusted resources, and you're getting me to design your room in a way that you are going to love. It's an investment. But I need to make my money, and that this is how the industry works, rather than trying to like hide it or
Hmm,
white label invoices or whatever all the other tricks that we use to sort of, make this
yeah,
margin. I actually think that being upfront about it is a way to really maximize it. But I don't know.
I like that.
Yeah, but I think I don't know all the tricks of the trade, but just off the top of my head, I'm thinking like the more you sort of bulk things together and do it as a full install and put everything on one invoice, and that's sort of a way to reduce the focus or attention on the price or markup of any one item. But that's just my
Totally.
business mind, think like a salesman. I
Well,
don't know.
you're making me feel really good about my business mind because I literally do that. And I just had a presentation yesterday with a client. I do room totals when we're doing
Yeah.
decorating. And so it's like den is $30,000. The family room was like, I don't know, it was a little expensive. It was like $55,000, for that particular project. And the client questioned it. And I said, full transparency, the reason I do this is so that we can get you the design and the look that you want, the quality I know you that you crave without getting into a nickel and diming situation where we end up removing pieces based on price, but not based on the design aesthetic. If you want to reduce the price, you tell me that, and I will find a way to save $10,000 and get you that design. But leave that with me as your professional to find the way to do it. But I also really like what you said, Alex, about
How did that go?
transparency. Uh, it went pretty well. They're repeat clients, so I have a good relationship with them. They still said, though, I will tell you, like full transparency, speaking of transparency, that they did say, well, yeah, the wife was like, okay, yeah, no, I totally understand that. And the husband was like, okay, well, I'm probably still going to need to, know the cost of certain items. I was like, okay, like, we'll see. Like, here's the pricing per room, like, take it home and we'll see. And we're already going to be reducing certain areas where we know they want to and explain, this fabric was half the price. So we'll swap it out for this fabric. But I'm not saying this fabric is $70 versus that fabric that's 120. Like, I'm not getting into those details. I did that early in my career, and it becomes this back and forth over like, oh, I want a fabric that's $20 cheaper, and like the hours that you lose that you really can't bill for. So I don't do that anymore. So we'll see. Verdict is still out. As of today's date, we're in revision. So we'll see if he comes back at me and wants more clarification. But I think what you said about transparency is really important because I do believe that more often than not, we hear that word and we think that means that we need to pass on all our discount. Oh, well, if she's transparent, that means she showed it's cost plus, like, here's my cost, and then here's my fee, and that's it. There's no markup. But I think when you talk about transparency in the term of I'm transparent, they know that there's a markup. I don't have to get into the nitty gritty of this cost me $10 and I'm charging you 12. But I'm transparent in the fact that this is our billing structure. And I've shared this with designers a lot on this podcast, but I I do sometimes have clients ask me if I share my discounts. And I tell them no, I used to do that, but it wasn't a profitable business model because it wasn't. And most of the time clients hear that and they're like, oh, okay. Like they don't want to put you out of business. It's just the way that you do business. And I think if you're transparent that way, um, then everyone's everyone's happier because you want to make money, right? You need to make money to stay in business. It's a business after all.
Have you ever charged anyone more than sort of the MSRP and like cross your fingers that they didn't figure it out? I think obviously when you work in custom furniture, there's no real MSRP. And I think there's a major advantage to doing
Mm-hmm.
things sort of, as mm, underground, so to speak, as you can, rather than like everyone can look up the price of an Ashley furniture SKU 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right. I haven't, but I do know designers who have,
Yeah.
and that makes me nervous for
Yeah, it
them.
makes you nervous, then you could lose trust. I don't have an opinion. I was just always sort of curious about that.
Yeah.
But I
I
like your
mean,
approach. I mean, just tell the
hey,
people how
everyone
you
has
make
their
money.
own.
Yeah, of
Well, that's
course,
the
of course.
thing. And we're all in business to make money. And if you're not, then it's a hobby and good for you and go hang out at the beach. But that's not my reality.
Well, look, there's a reason why they're going to a professional for help. And just like we go to a doctor or a mechanic, we don't need to know how they make money and how the doctor bills insurance or how much the mechanic is. Well, sometimes we want to know how much the mechanic is getting that part for, but at the end of the day, they're providing a service that has value. And I think if someone is hiring you as a designer, they're willing to pay for that service. They just need to be educated on how it works because it's a little bit different and dynamic. They may, you know, they may be seeing invoices or packing slips from Crate and Barrel with a certain price on it that's different than what they paid. And I think that transparency could be very helpful. But I'm also the
Mhm.
least experienced interior designer in this entire conversation right now, listening to this. So I don't know.
Yeah, I had a situation years ago where I didn't what I did is I did cost plus 20. That was my model. So my cost plus 20%. And it was a big renovation. And things went south with their contractor. And he was running out of money and was robbing Peter to pay Paul. And it was a mess. And he wasn't doing the work. And he tried to turn around and point fingers at me. And he turned to the clients and said, not in my face, but the client told me after, well, you know, Rebecca's marking up everything she's selling you. She's making money on all of that. To which my client said, because I'd been very transparent, it was in my contract. My client said, yes, we know she charges cost plus 20. That's what we signed her contract for. And it was kind of like a booyah, take that moment where he assumed that I wasn't transparent and did not have integrity and tried to throw me under the bus. And it actually kind of backfired and made him actually look terrible. So I think transparency is so key and you got to make money. But anyhow, we're not here to talk about money, honey. This has been really insightful. I'm really excited because I do think that when the more information that designers have at their fingertips, the better they're able to educate their clients, the better they then can charge more money, the more value they are adding. It's no different than going into a restaurant. I worked for many years at Earl's restaurant when I was in design school, and they called it romancing the food, right? When you approach the table and you're explaining what's on the menu to the clients or to the customers, you romance it. You tell the story. You explain like the grapes came from this, I don't know, vineyard and this, and
Just
then here's
a
the
quick
family.
pause here. This is at the restaurant called Earl's, by the way. Keep going.
Yes. Why? Earl's.
Hey Earl, how you doing?
No, you don't
Hey.
know Earl's.
No,
Earl's
I don't.
it is actually not a chain. They're all corporately owned, but they have exploded. They're from the West Coast. They're on the West
Oh,
Coast,
whoops.
Vancouver. They're from Vancouver, but they have locations across North America now.
Got it.
Anyways, they taught us about romancing the food, and it's so true. It's adding that extra value so that the customer feels almost excited to spend the money because they really value the product. And you are giving designers the tools and the general public the tools to really educate themselves and understand and make them feel more confident about their purchases.
Look, I've been preaching all over town the same stupid dad joke that I say, which is you really need to be comfortable to buy a couch.
Yes.
And it's like anything. Like you have to reach a level of comfort as a consumer to swipe your credit card, whether you're buying groceries or anything else. And how you establish that trust with the brand or retailer or interior designer, there are many paths to getting there. But I believe as a retail marketer that that is an essential part of the transaction that is often undervalued and not focused on enough. We have to build the buyer's trust. And it seems like in the interior design world that more transparency would do that, at least for me as a client, it would.
Yeah, and it's interesting. This got me thinking. Yesterday, I had a conversation inside Designers Room, which is my monthly membership where designers come and share and learn. And somebody said one of their questions was, "How do I convince my clients to buy a couch?" It was actually about a couch that they can't sit on. Because, the one I've picked from the website of this supplier that my retailer doesn't have it on their showroom floor. And that was the debate and the conversation because the world has shifted. It used to be that everything was on the showroom floor. You couldn't buy things that weren't on the showroom. That was the different model. But now with the intraweb, right? There's so much more at our fingertips that you will never get a chance to sit on. So what do you say to that designer who wants to sell a couch to a client but hasn't sat in it themselves and is a little bit nervous because they don't maybe have that trust yet with their client?
What a great question. And I spent over a decade of my life chasing this specific thing, selling as an online only retailer to thousands and thousands of customers. It is sort of the biggest question when buying furniture online. What if you can't see it? Or what if I get it and I don't like it? So there are a number of ways to approach this. Of course, I think a lot of people will sort of fall back on a return policy and be like, well, you don't have to keep it. If you really don't like it, you could send it back, which is generally the case. But I would take a little bit more of a proactive approach. And here's what we know. We know that we're never going to get to sit on the Alex sofa, right? We're never going to get to sit on it before we buy it. It's just not possible. So just level setting that if you're talking to a client or a customer, just making sure that everyone's understanding like that, no, there's no possible way to do this. So we're going to have to use alternative means to get you feeling comfortable, pun intended, enough to buy this couch. So what I have always recommended is to gain as much context as possible. And here are a few ways. One, start with your own couch that you currently have. Take an image if there's another decision maker like a partner or kids or other people you share this couch with, roommates, whatever, just actually have a discussion. It seems cheesy or corny, but like literally talk about, what do you like about the sofa? What do you? Well, I like this and I like that. Having a sense of what you like about a sofa and what you may dislike will help inform what you're looking for in your next one. Okay. So you start there. Then I think, whether it's a specific retailer or a specific type of sofa, search for things that are similar to that to sit on and actually feel in person. I always recommend that customers go to a few actual in-person furniture stores or retailers just for context, right? To get a
Mhm.
sense of what a high density foam, cushion feels like versus a down cushion. Like down is a perfect example. So many people think that down just equals luxury, equals higher end, but I don't like sitting on down. I absolutely despise down pillows for my head at night. If they're in like a hotel, I'm like, no, no, no. I'll use like a towel instead.
Oh gosh,
Point
you're
is,
not
I mean,
particular at all.
no, no, no. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. No, okay. I think just gaining context, it's not perfect, but literally going to sit on similar pieces. If it's a deep-seated sofa, go sit on, find one that is 27 inches deep also and see what that feels like. So you can check a lot of boxes more than one would think at first glance. The last thing I'll
Mm.
say is fabric swatches. Virtually every online retailer offers them on anything that's sort of medium to higher end. And even though it may extend the waiting period a little bit longer, generally they'll get them to you in a week or less. And I think that's a fantastic way to literally have a touch point with the actual fabric that you're going to be using or sitting on every day. You can test it out, spill some wine on it, put some ketchup on it, clean it. You can literally use this tiny piece of fabric as if it was part of your couch for a little while to get as much context as you can.
But if you're going to give the fabric swatches to your clients to test, also give them rubbing alcohol so they can get it out. Is I could just picture sending a fabric sample home with the client and they're like putting ketchup on it and they're like, well, it's stained. I'm like, yeah, no shit. If you put ketchup on white fabric, it's gonna stain.
Hey,
Anyways,
if you've learned nothing from this today, those listening at home, get yourself some rubbing alcohol and have it stocked. Give it to all your clients as a little welcome gift. You'll be
right.
happy you did.
Super awkward and weird, but it works. Oh my gosh, Alex, this has been a really great conversation. There's so many more things I would love to pick your brain about. So we'll have to have you back. I want to hear about your marketing. I think what you're doing is really, really fascinating. Guys, you got to go check it out. But before we end our time together, can you please share a last nugget of wisdom with my listeners today?
Sure. I think that um, being, and not to get too deep into the marketing thing, but I talk about marketing a lot with people in business community and other podcasts and things that I've been running my mouth all over town a little bit recently talking about Couch.com. I think people really want. I like to talk about partnerships and having and using other brands and in this case even other interior designers, even competitors that you would just generally in your mind you're sort of averse to reaching out to the other person in your community or in your city who's doing a really good job.
Right.
But generally speaking, people like to help other people. Think about when you get asked for help for something. I think most people feel great about that. They're like, wow, this person actually wants help from me. And they're very endeared by that request and generally will offer the help, even if it's for free or for a competitor. So I would say there's safety in numbers and there's power in partnering up with people and asking them for help, even if they may at first seem like it would be dangerous in some way, risky,
Mm.
or that you are sort of engaging with your competitors. I think there's still a lot of value in getting out there and partnering up or cozying up to as many people as you can.
Yeah, I think that really resonates with me. I'm glad you shared that little nugget because it's something I talk about all the time is collaboration over competition. And then someone asked me, a designer at High Point said to me, like, Rebecca, you've brought all of us designers together and this is so great. And I know you have all these designer friends, but what about in your coaching space? Like, what about in the online business space? Like, do you have those partners? Do you have those people that you can talk to and collaborate with? And I was like, you know what? I don't really like that's on my radar for this year's. I really need to be more intentional. And like you say, kind of get over that fear that it might be dangerous to approach a competitor or somebody else who seems to be doing a little bit better than me, to just even have a conversation. It's not that you're asking for anything, right? You're not necessarily asking for something in exchange. And so I think it's a great reminder for me for sure, but for all the designers listening to reach out. Like the worst that can happen is the person says no and they don't have time for you, right?
100%. There's really no risk. No one likes being rejected, but there's a very low probability that anyone would be left feeling rejected when reaching out for help in a reasonable fashion. So I say go for it. You have very, very little to lose.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me today. Before we leave, can you let everybody know where they can find and follow you?
Absolutely. So I'm a very communicative person and I love hearing from people. I'm happy to continue conversations along the lines of any of the themes we discussed today with anybody. Like I'm busy, but I'm not that busy. If you want to send me an email, my email is alex@couch.com. And I'm also just really getting feedback about, how to sort of structure and shepherd this idea of couch.com and the platform that we're building. So as much input as I get from people like you, Rebecca, and anybody listening is actually very valuable to me. If I can be of service to anybody, or if anyone has a question or just want to, shoot the breeze with me, like I would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, I will be happy to collaborate with you. I saw your website and I turned to my husband. I was like, look what this guy's doing. This is effing, not going to swear.
Don't
This is
do it.
effing brilliant. I love it. Thank you very much for your time, Alex.
My pleasure.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Alex. Oh my gosh, I had so many more questions I wanted to ask him. And in fact, we actually stayed on after recording for another 30 minutes talking about marketing and business. And it's a great podcast guest when the time is running out and you still have more to talk about. I'm really excited to follow his journey and to see what he does with this new endeavor at couch.com. Like, talk about freaking brilliant marketing, e-commerce, the whole 9 yards. So guys, we are going to follow closely on Alex's journey and hopefully have him back here so he can kind of update us on the trajectory of this business. If you found value today in some of the information that Alex shared, please hop on over to find him on Instagram, find his website, tell him you found him here on the podcast. It would mean a lot to me. And also let me know, do you guys want to learn more about couches and upholstered furniture and speccing that for your clients? Because I feel like we entered a rabbit hole that we could have kept going down. So let me know if that's a topic that interests you. We can do some episodes on it. And don't forget to please review this podcast. Hop on over to iTunes, give us a 5 stars with a lovely comment. Let others know what specifically it is about this podcast that you keep coming back to and why you enjoy listening to it. The more reviews we get, the more eyeballs we can get. Earballs, eyeballs, eardrums. I don't know. Got to work on that one. That we can get on the podcast. And don't forget to hop on over to Instagram and always come and give me a DM and say hello. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Alex. See you soon.